Hello and welcome to Arts 24. As countries around the world mark International Women's Day, our focus shifts to the human rights of more than half of the global population. And while women in the arts have made strides in many countries, elsewhere their voices are being silenced. Since the Taliban took power in 2021, Afghan women have been living under increasingly oppressive rules. Initially banned from teaching and attending university, they're now excluded from education beyond the age of 12. Women cannot play sports, beauty salons have been closed, and even national parks are off limits for women and girls. Well, to tell us more about their experience as Afghan female artists now living in exile, we'll be hearing from photographer Fatima Hosseini, who's joining us by video link from Uzbekistan, where she's working, and writer and activist Mursal Sayas, who's here in the studio with us. Welcome to you both. Now, Mursal, I know that you fled Afghanistan just hours after the Taliban seized power in 2021. I believe it was partly due to the work you do. Can you tell us more about that?
Thanks for having me today here. Yes, I was working with Human Rights Commission, Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, which we were monitoring the human rights violence all around the country from both sides, the government and the Taliban. So we were always targeted by the Taliban as we were monitoring and documenting their violences and also the other violences in Afghanistan, and also developing the human rights and working for the human rights. For the Taliban, human rights is a Western value. It isn't an essential thing for all the people who deserve. So that was why I had to leave. Beside my work, Afghanistan was a dangerous place for all the women. I left Afghanistan because I was a woman and I couldn't live under the Taliban's rule in the country, besides my work.
So it was both your work and your status as a woman.
And my gender.
Yeah, in fact. Well, Fatima, you also left Kabul very quickly in August. You had to drop everything you were doing. How did you see your future as a woman, as an artist, if you had stayed?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, especially during this important time for women of Afghanistan. And it was a very heartbreaking decision in entire of my life to think about it, that how I could leave home. As I was born in Tehran, and the meaning of Afghanistan and home was quite a different thing for me. If I stayed at Kabul, given the dark experience of people of Afghanistan, of course, you know that what they did in 1996 when they took over Kabul, Afghanistan, and what happened during the time that Taliban was in Afghanistan. So their ideology and their decision regarding the women life is quite clear for Afghans and for all around the world. So if I could stay, and if I decided to stay in Afghanistan, today, I think even I couldn't touch my camera, going out, capture the stories, even live and breathe as a woman. And of course, as I'm an artist and from a minority Hazara community, it was also could be another target for me, as during the Republic also I had so many problems. I had an organization working to empower women through art, and beside teaching at Kabul University in art faculty. So, I'm quite sure that all these things could eradicate it from me.
You've just published a book, actually, here in France called Qui entendra nos cris, in French, Who Will Hear Our Screams. This is various accounts of women who experienced terrible things, child brides, women who were bought and sold. Tell us about how you met them and what was most striking about their stories.
I was working with Human Rights Commission and Women Development Department. So one of the part of my job was to go to the prisons, the shelters, the hospitals, and everywhere that the women's rights were supposed to be violated, and meet the women and interview them and follow up their cases on the judicial system and government system. So this is how I meet these women. They were coming to Human Rights Commission, and also I was going to the places that they were targeted. This is how I collected the stories. With this book, yes, I was trying to say, who will hear our screams right now even. The situation of the women that I explained in this book, these are documented. These are not the fiction stories. These are the horrible truth of Afghanistan under a so-called democratic country. The stories are quite difficult, hard to read, but we were working with them. Just imagine how hard it was just to be a woman in Afghanistan.
And that was prior to the Taliban coming to power.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was many thousands, hundreds of organizations that were working for women. But right now, no one is working for Afghanistan. There isn't any organization to support the women in Afghanistan. Women are the victims of money violence, the society from the Taliban, the domestic violence, and a lot of other stories.
Now, Fatima, going to your work, I know that you've worked on many projects and portraits that put Afghan women in the spotlight specifically. And when it comes to the perception of this demographic, Afghan women are often presented as victims of the society they live in. How do you think that artistic representations can challenge this stereotype?
Actually, it was the concept and manifest of my life that I just fought for it, like for many years, like since I started photography. So the thing is that I was always tired of this victimization. I was always tired of like carrying the labels in all my life. I mean, from being a refugee in Iran and then being an evacuee and artist in exile in France, and then in Afghanistan, all these labels that I carry with myself. So beyond all of these labels and all these restrictions and all this victimization, I think there is another side of women life in Afghanistan that I just try to cover that. I mean, these beauties in the textile, in the fabric, in different faces, in the resistance and resilience of women of Afghanistan was something that I just wanted to highlight it and also mention it, that this is also a part of women, the reality of women of Afghanistan. So that's why I just like worked on the Beauty Umidwar photo project since 2018 when I decided to go back to Kabul and the last photo shoot was just quite some months before the collapse that I left to France, and I just finished the last 5 photos in France. But this was also like the resilience of women in exile. I mean, the whole concept to go through the breaking the cliches of the dark image of women of Afghanistan and a little bit highlighting the beauty, the color, the hidden resilience of them among like that covered by the news of war. And during this project, I met so many amazing, strong women that how they manage their life, how they tell their story through a fabric, tell their story through a hat, tell their stories through whatever they wear, they do. And these stories were more fantastic and more important for me to highlight than always covering the war.
Now, here in France, the right to terminate a pregnancy has just been added to the Constitution. Marcel, I know you have a background in law as well, and I know that abortion is extremely, if not totally, restricted in Afghanistan. What did you think of this law?
Well, I really appreciate it. I'm so proud that I'm living in this country with this law. I'm really proud of this. When I was coming to the studio, I was thinking about this, about the women of Afghanistan. They even have not access to contraceptives. We know why they don't have access, because they don't have a job. They cannot pay for that. Every day when they wake up, they have nothing, no hope ahead. When we wake up, we have a plan what to do during the day, where to go, what is our goals, even for one day, for next month. But in Afghanistan, women are in prison. They don't know what to do, how to deal with all this situation. Everything happens suddenly. Over than 15 orders has been signed by Mullah Hibatullah, the leader of the Taliban, that removes and eliminates the women from the society at all. So we are in Afghanistan, we are living so far from 21st century. We are living in the Middle Ages. And this is the gift the Taliban brought to us and the international community, which are not standing with women in Afghanistan. They're trying to deal with the Taliban somehow. So this is absolutely a gender apartheid that women are facing in Afghanistan. The time that we are celebrating the abortion that in France, the women are torturing in the Taliban's prison in Afghanistan because they want their basic rights. They want their basic rights.
Yeah, and it comes down to human rights in the end, of course. Just before we wrap up, Marcel, I know you're working on some fiction, creative writing as your next project. And Fatima, I believe you're shooting video and photography there in Uzbekistan. I wanted to ask you, do you think your identity as a woman, as an Afghan, will ever be far from your work? Is it key, that identity, is it key to what you create?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as I am a person, and like I can say, like with different life experiences and carrying different labels in my life, and I can just say that my identity moreover can be my gender as a woman. And nowadays, and like that I started new project in Silk Road, I'm just covering women in different lands, in different countries. So it is quite for me very emotional time, but also it took a lot of time, and it was so hard for me to move on from my thoughts, my heart, and my concept in Afghanistan. And after being in exile and leaving home, I was completely disconnected with the source of my works, with like my with connecting to women of Afghanistan, and even with breathing the weather of my country. So that's why, I mean, I thought that I couldn't work on that anymore, and I just eradicate this like the country or whatever, the land of the concept of my works over there, and I just started to covering the women life in and their resilience in just like different home and different lands and different countries. So that's why, as Afghanistan is a part of Silk Road, I mean, it was quite another project for me. So now, more than ever, I feel it that how important it is for me, before everything, to be a woman. And I'm so happy that I have this opportunity to covering women in some other countries.
Indeed, which will result in some beautiful artwork, I'm pretty sure. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us today. We'll leave you with more of Fatima's work. This is from a series entitled Pearl in the Oyster, Portraits of Afghan Women. That's a glimpse at the beauty, diversity and resilience of both of your fellow countrywomen. Do catch Arts24 next time on our website and on our social media channels too. Bye for now.